it was like a death sentence. I remember standing there at attention, and our command master chief comes up to me, and he's like whispering stuff to every individual person and giving them, whatever piece of advice he thinks is important. And he gets to me and he looks at me and he's pinning what they call the crows, my rank on. He's pinning my rank on, and he goes, "You're a company man now. When they say they mean you." Slaps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Good luck." I was like, "Oh my, I have messed up. Like, this is not good."
Well, welcome to the Big Tex Ordnance podcast. This is season 3 now. I think episode 1 is season 3, depending on when this airs. We'll call it episode 1.
Yeah.
Season 3. I'm Ike. We have Ian here, and today we're joined by Christopher Clay. He's an author, amongst other things, and he's here chatting with us for a little bit. Made the drive down, and if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I'm just happy to be here. Christopher Clay. I am a cop at a major agency in Central Texas by day, and in my spare time, I like to write fiction. I was in the military for several years before that. Been a cop for 8 years. Actually, this month, on the 23rd of this month, over half my life will have been spent in government service. So,
wow,
yeah, right at 20 years, and I turned 39. So it's pretty crazy to think about. Like, if I had stayed in, I would have been retired this year, which is pretty wild.
Really?
I don't feel that old, but so yeah, I was in the military for 12 years in the Navy. First half of that was trying to get into mostly naval special warfare, and then the last half of it was spent in the law enforcement context. I was like a master at arms, the Navy's version of military police. So got tired of pretending to be a cop.
I was OP in the Army.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, kind of.
There we go. Yeah, y'all's program is a lot more robust than the Navy's, for sure. But it was fun. It provided a really good, foundation for me moving on. And some of the people that I'll talk about later, like meeting those people, really was instrumental in getting me to where I am now. So it was good for me. I had fun with it.
Nice.
So what made you transition out of the Navy into law enforcement? What drove that?
Oh, man. A whole bunch of different things. So I had been I'd put on E6. I went to a full-time training job where I was training firearms and tactics, what the Navy would call an anti-terrorism training supervisor. And I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is going to catapult my career. And I realized going from E5 to E6 in the Navy, it was like a death sentence. I remember standing there at attention, and our command master chief comes up to me, and he's like whispering stuff to every individual person and giving them, whatever piece of advice he thinks is important. And he gets to me and he looks at me and he's pinning what they call the crows, my rank on. He's pinning my rank on, and he goes, "You're a company man now. When they say they mean you." Slaps me on the shoulder. He's like, "Good luck." I was like, "Oh my, I have messed up. Like, this is not good." And sure enough, like right after that, and every branch is different. Like the Army, that transitionary phase is like right at E5. But for us, it's E6, moving into E7. And when you're in E7 in the Navy, you're like a made man. You can't do anything wrong. But you also sell your soul and become less than human, in my opinion. So, all those like Navy chiefs, not all of them. There was several that I came across that were good, but I didn't want to do that. And once I realized that was on my horizon, I was like, I got to make a change.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound conceited, but it's really not. And there's several military people out there right now thinking the exact same thing. Like, I realized I'm better than this place and I can do better. And there are other places doing way more high-speed things than I'll ever get a chance to do here. So I got out and applied at a major agency and was, truly by the grace of God, like picked up immediately, had no problems getting in. And truthfully, I just, like, at my core, the way God made me, just wanted to smash bad guys. So that's why I just wanted to go smash bad guys and do it for real.
Nice.
So coming out, did you go straight to the agency you're with now here in Texas?
Yep, sure did.
What brought you to Texas? You're not from here originally, are you?
I'm not. I was born in Tennessee, right outside of Nashville in Franklin.
Okay.
Funny story about that in George Jones, but moved when I was about 10 to Southwest Missouri, a little tiny town, and joined the Navy out of there. So he asked me not to use his name, but my partner that I've been partnered up with for about 12 or 13 years, who I'll just call as Actual or Renegade Actual.
It's in the book.
It's in the book. I met him in Florida, and he worked for the military, not in the military. He's a DoD civilian. And so about when my time was about to be up for that enlistment and that duty station, we're gonna have to break up the band. And he's like, dude, why don't we just leave? I was like, okay. Like, leave where though? He's like, well, I just went to this job fair, and this agency is saying they'll pay us this much. I was like, yeah, I bet you believed your Army recruiter too. So I started looking at it, and I kind of sat on it for months. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was like, well, I got to do something because I'm not going to stay here. And started really paying attention to like what they were doing and like looking into it. And I was like, holy crap! Like this agency pays a lot. They got a lot of movement like laterally with specialty units, and let's just roll the dice. Like I got nothing to lose. I had no family at the time. Like just take a leap of faith. So
Nice.
yeah, that worked out pretty good.
What got you into writing? What made you sit down and try, start writing that book?
That's a good question. I always tell people when they ask me this, I was like, I'm not really a writer. I'm a storyteller. And you're like, oh yeah, that's just something that people say. Like, since I was a little kid, I was always telling stories about like, and then Roy Rogers, because I watched old Westerns and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then Roy Rogers and Zorro, like they teamed up and like telling my mom all this stuff and whatnot. So I've always had an interest in stories. And then writing just kind of became the mode in which I tell the story after I became a full-time real cop. And because I was always writing really lengthy reports about he said, she said, this because of that. And they drilled it into us at the time, like, listen, these details matter. Mm-hmm. Like, you want to put real bad dudes away, these details matter on why you did the thing that you did and why this person did that, and like very descriptive. And I took that to heart. And so I started, just writing really good police reports. And I read a lot growing up, but I, one day I was on a vacation trip with my wife and my daughter at the time. We went down to Galveston, and she's like, hey, we were with a group of people, and we're like, hey, we're going to go to this place called Moody Gardens. I don't know, maybe you'll like it. And for those that haven't been down there, it's an attraction that's really cool. It's really worth seeing.
It's really neat.
Yeah. And they've got a couple of glass pyramids, like huge, like they're quite large. One of them's an aquarium, and the other one's a fully contained rainforest ecosystem. And then some other stuff there, and like riverboat rides and whatnot, and like a water park or whatever. But so we go into the rainforest one, and I was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And I'm not a gamer, but like I play video games. And so walking around, you see all the different levels of the rainforest, and they've got wildlife like flying over you and interacting with you and all that. And at the bottom, they have like some like fake ancient ruins and like a little like waterfall and big deep pool of water. And it really reminded me of like Tomb Raider or Uncharted.
Yeah.
And I like those games. They're super popular for good reason. And I was like, yeah, like those are cool, but I wish they leaned a little bit more heavy on the like gunfighting side.
Yeah.
They're kind of like 40% gunfighting or shooting, and then 60% the other stuff, archaeology and whatnot. So I saw that, and on the way home, I got to thinking, man, I wish someone made a movie like that. Can I make a movie? How do I get a movie made? I was like, I can't get a movie
You're like,
made.
how can I get a movie made on a police salary?
Yeah. I was like, I can't do that because I'm a very visual person.
Go Napoleon Dynamite, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, just make it yourself.
They're like OG Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's like a, 3 or 4 hour ride back, and my wife's listening to some like murder podcast, like, I don't know why they love that stuff, but women do. And in any case, I'm just like inside my own head thinking about this like developing story. And I was like, I bet I could write something though. I could write a book. And I had no idea how much, like I was literally towing the edge and I was about to step off, and what a cliff. Yeah. So that's kind of where the idea came from. I wanted Tomb Raider, but more tactical.
Yeah. So since we're on the topic of the book, the name of it's Renegade Immortality.
Correct.
When did it come out?
March 26th.
I was going to say, yeah, I remember pre-ordering it a while ago.
Yeah.
And then it finally showed up, I think in April. I don't know, it showed up right as soon as Amazon had it there, like as soon as on the release date. So.
There were some hiccups like in the first week or so, but I started writing in 2019.
That was my next question. I was like, how long did it actually take from conception to...
I got back from that trip and I called up one of my really close friends who, well, I'll get into that in a second. So I called up one of my really close friends who was in college at the time, and I knew he was writing a lot. And I was like, hey man, I've got this idea. What do you think? And before I could even finish, he's like, I'm in. Let's do it. So we started kind of storyboarding for weeks of what we wanted and how we kind of wanted to frame the world. And then we just started writing in like May or April of 2019. And so we were both writing at the time, and he kind of had to tail off because of obligations with school. He's trying to finish up his degree. And we had talked about it so much. I knew kind of what direction I wanted to take it. And so just went from there, and it took me, I gave myself a year. I was like, these big authors can do it in a year. I can do it in a year. Not knowing what I was getting myself into. And so it took me 2. I finished, like, the story was done, more like in 6 months in my head, but getting it on paper ended up taking another 1.5 years. So I finished it in 2 years and then kind of sat on it and didn't know what to do. And typically what happens is, you submit it to all these people and then they just tell you yes, no, or you never hear anything back at all.
Yeah.
Which is what happened a couple of times. And so, yeah, it took me a little while, but it all worked out, it'll end up happening.
Ian has his copy here. We'll show it to the camera real quick. Here, actually, you're closer if you want to.
Bink. Oh, wait. We got to hold it back. I don't know if it's going to focus. We can put a link.
We'll put a link.
We'll put a link.
Absolutely.
We have the technology.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
It's 2024.
Yeah, it was really, I was telling you earlier, my Amanda's a super big book person. She's on, I don't know, book 30 for the year, something outrageous like that already. And I've been trying to read more, and I just picked it up after you read it, and I was like, all right, I'll get a copy. And it was really like, I didn't want to put it down. It was like, all right, I got to the action stuff. I'm like, oh, this is like right up my alley. I'm reading it. And I was like, man, I don't want to like burn through it because I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to like set it down and like read, a couple chapters a night. And, when we were winding down for the evening, but it was good. If you're a gear person, if you're like a gun dude, it's right.
It's very technically proficient.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like you can tell somebody with experience is writing the scenes and stuff, because it's not just like, like the typical book gunfight,
Yeah.
It's,
he had a rifle and he shot the guy.
But yeah, they do more than just like gunfighting. You've got your gear and your comms and like, all the logistical support that, like you can tell there's some thought that went into it.
Well, I appreciate
from
that.
experience.
I appreciate that. I really did try to be authentic with all of that. And it's funny. You should see my notes. My notes from when I first started and like the things that I wanted to kind of get out of this. And one of those was very detailed descriptions of that stuff to be very specific, because it always bothered me as a reader. Like, and then he picked up his rifle and like, well, what kind of rifle is this dude carrying?
Yeah.
And then he holstered his pistol. Well, what's he got? Has he got a Glock, or has he got a high point? What's this guy got? And so I wanted to be very specific and detailed as much as I could be, because details to me matter. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered, like, about a year into writing, like, I didn't know who Jack Carr was or anything. And I discovered he had just, I think, released his second book, and he was super popular, like almost immediately. I was like, well, if he's successful, like, let me just kind of see what he's doing. So I picked up a couple of his copies, and it was kind of funny. I kind of have not a love-hate relationship, but just like I like what he's doing, but I'm also kind of envious because he's like one step ahead of me. Yeah. Of certain things. Mm-hmm. So like little quirks for characters, like the main character in my novel, Cody Willis, drinks coffee with honey, and that's just what I do. I drink coffee with honey. I don't remember where I picked it up, but like black coffee with a spoonful of honey. So I'm like, oh, this will just kind of be a thing that my character has that'll make him unique. I'm reading through Jack Carr, and I'm like, hang on a second here. Like, he's got coffee with honey. Like,
I thought that was me.
Yeah. Like, and so he beats me to the punch on several things. And then I have to like completely change gears on little stuff like that, because I'm like, no one's going to believe me. Like, no, really, guys, for real.
I promise I didn't.
Yeah. And so little things like that have just kind of popped up along the way, and I've learned a lot with the whole process. But
yeah, like going back to what you're saying about like the details and stuff, like, sometimes in this genre of book, you'll have like, it's just name dropping everywhere, with brands and stuff. Yeah. You do it enough so that way you can visualize it, because like you talk about like a Hodge rifle or like a pistol or whatever it is, like it helps the reader that's familiar with that stuff visualize it. You have barrel lengths in there, so it's like the rifle. Well, is it a 16-inch, an 18? Like, what are we, is it a bolt action? Like, what are we dealing with here? Yeah. You've got like the Hodge 12.5 or whatever, so it helps you visualize that. But it's not excessive to where it's like a big, like, like billboard inside a book, or. Yeah, it's just enough to give you the details so you can visualize what's going on in the scene, but it's not like doesn't feel like you're being sold in the book,
Well, that's good. I did have to scale it back there's multiple editing phases that occur when publishing a book, and several of them, it sees several different editors, and a couple of times they're like, hey, can you use like car or just SUV based on the model that they I forget what it's called. It'll come to me in a minute, but instead of like Land Cruiser or Toyota. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I mean, I can, but sometimes it just kind of helps to know, like, this guy's
Land Rovers in there, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. So like isn't it like the main, sorry, what's the name of the I don't want to get too much into the details of the story.
Guys.
Yeah. The bad guys, like, isn't the main bad guy driving a Land Cruiser?
Most of them, yeah. So
because it kind of fits like that whole, like, it brings a lot more realism than just like an SUV. It's like Land Rover, like, that's like, okay, yeah, I can see him driving that.
Trying to draw a picture, like literally using 1,000 words, to draw a picture in your mind. And sometimes I think those details, like a specific model of a car, and describing like, oh yeah, that's a luxury SUV that is also capable of off-road stuff. Mm-hmm. You kind of get a sense of, okay, these guys got money. And while that might not be the most appropriate vehicle for whatever they're using, like strictly off-road to do an archaeological dig, but you kind of get like they're flashy. Yeah. And they, like there's more stuff that's subconscious with that than just on the surface. Like, oh yeah, cool, an SUV.
Well, it's like a movie, like they're going to have like that. You're going to see it in the movie. So it's like You're just describing with words what you would see with your eyes, in a motion picture. And
most of the time, like if there's any void in the words, the readers will fill that with their own imagination. And so if you're familiar with it or not, at least somewhere, or at least at some point, you've got a stepping off point for Hodge, what is that? And like you kind of like look at it. Oh, okay, that's what he's using. I got it now. Or whatever Land Rover. Like, oh,
If you say SUV, you're gonna just put in whatever SUV. You're like,
Probably the Suburban,
my Honda CRV that my wife drives.
Yeah.
That's what the bad guys are driving.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, low budget bad guys.
Yeah. Look, ballers on a budget. Chill.
Then they have like that one that like I forget what model it is, but like when they're I don't want to get too much into the story. So speaking of the story, can you give us a general overview of what it covers without giving away too much? What's the general synopsis of the book?
The simplest way I can say it, and I'll go into detail, but when people ask me like in a few words or less, because what's the publisher also asked me, like in a few words or less, it's like, okay, it's Indiana Jones meets Tom Clancy. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. And so it's the story kind of starts off introducing you to some of the main protagonists that work for like a private military company. And you can tell these are serious guys. They're very well experienced. And then some things happen. One of the guys has a younger sister, who is a young up-and-coming archaeologist who is trying to make a name for herself. And some of the topics in the archaeological world that people will not really touch because it is too close to like biblical things, specifically like giants and Nephilim. She's trying to get some funding for and talking about her theories. Well, in any case, she's approached by a shady character who works for a company called North Spear, who offers, hey, listen, I've got a spot. I want you to lead this team on this dig, specifically about regarding Nephilim artifacts. So she jumps at the chance, and her brother, who's, kind of cautious and, been around the block a little bit, is like, yeah, I don't know. This sounds too good to be true. She ends up finds herself in a little bit of trouble and reaches out to her brother. Calamity ensues. Yeah. So covers some biblical concepts that are important to me, and some biblical history. And I looked at why are only 2 of the Indiana Jones movies so successful, and the other 2 just kind of like meh. And one of the things those 2 have in common is its relationship with biblical tie-ins. The Cup of Christ and the Ark of the Covenant. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've seen it in the other ones, but they were not as entertaining for some reason. I don't know why. I guess they just weren't as popular. But
yeah, I remember as a kid watching the one where like he drinks. He's like, "Oh, this is a cup fit for a king." He drinks it. And he's like, and the other guy's like, he chose poorly." Like that. That the Ark of the Covenant one too, when the lid comes off and like all the Nazis get like
oh yeah, they melted like wax.
Yeah.
That was super
It's been a while since I rewatched those.
We started watching those with the kids the other day.
Nice.
We had to fast forward through some parts because they're kind of young. I was like, oh man, I forgot about that.
Yeah. I was watching it not too long ago, the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Man, there's a scene, they're getting in a shootout, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, Dr. Jones, he ain't no gunfighter. But he sends one right through this dude's skull, and it's pretty graphic for early 80s.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa,
80s movie.
I don't remember that. They didn't have that on TBS last time it was on.
Nice.
But yeah, so some of those principles were kind of important to me. I have my faith is important to me, and had been since I was kind of young. And so when I was trying to get into naval special warfare early on, I had a supernatural encounter, and that was very important to kind of show kind of some of this stuff and weave it into the story. And it's kind of my way to, I guess, do my job as a Christian, and proclaim the gospel or whatever. But I'm not one of those people like, hey man, everyone's got free will. You can choose to do whatever you want. That's between you and the one who made you at the end of the day. So I know that I've done my own thing for a long time, but just thought it was cool, whatever. So I'm not one of those guys that's gonna You need to believe what I believe. Not by any means. You should do your own looking into it, come up with your own determination, So that's kind of how that goes. But anyway.
So some of the characters in the book are based on real life people. Can you talk about any about that or?
Yes, they're inspired by real life people. I got in trouble with that because I put up a thing and I was like, yeah, this kind of, and you can't, the people at the publisher was like, you can't say that. And I was like, well, they were inspired. That's okay. There you go. That's what you can say.
There's the word.
Yeah. That's what you can say. And I was like, okay, yeah, they're inspired by people. So most of the protagonists, and again, this sounds like I'm being conceited or whatever, but like Cody Willis is based on me. That's why you'll never see him as like a superhero. Like he can do anything type of, like he's fraught with all kinds of error. Right. And he's conflicted with a lot of things and he's troubled and he's not some like mindless killer dude who can take on anybody. He's just a regular guy who gets put in some weird situations. So like his personality and his choices are based on my choices. And I kind of came up with that. Cody Willis was my alter ego for years when I was overseas. So in 2008, after my last time at Buds, I was in 3 different Buds classes in the course of 3 years. And my last time there, when I had my supernatural encounter, and, typically when you're at the bottom of the bottom, typically when you're at the bottom of the bottom and God meets you there, directly after that, he will seclude you from stuff. And that's exactly what happened to me. I went out to sea and was out to sea on a forward deployed ship for like 2 years. And like I missed all of 08 and 09. I came back and everybody had iPhones. I was like, what's an iPhone?
Like I still have this Nokia.
I did. That is for real. That is 100% what happened. I was like, an app? What the hell is an app?
Like Snake?
Yeah. I was like, what? So anyways, I was out there and my job at the time, I was an operations specialist at OS, which is a fancy way of saying I watched radars, did plotting, tracking, navigation, and some communication from ship to ship. And so if you've ever seen
some nerdy shit.
Oh, 100%. I was the worst at it too. I was the worst OS in naval history.
You let us get torpedoed. You're like, I don't know.
Bad. Yeah. So I did have access to secret material and, what they call, it's essentially like GPS, like Google Maps, but now they have it at the individual level with ATAC, but for ships and stuff.
Neat.
So it was really cool. And it had messenger.
Like a real life battleship.
Yes. And it had like messenger. So you get into a talk group and you can just like instant message your counterpart on this other ship, hundreds, if not thousands of miles away.
Oh, wow.
Well, so I had access to all that stuff. So, and you get trained like, what you can and can't say about all that or whatever. And hey, it's not a big deal. Well, in any case, I was in the Philippines, and due to the type of ship that I was on at the time, we got to go places that most regular warships did not. I was on the USNS Richard E. Byrd, TAKE-4, and it was a supply ship, mostly with civilians and only 11 military. It's like 120 civilians.
Interesting.
They were all like retired military. And so we got to go into like cool places like the old Navy base in Subic Bay that was shut down in the 90s. I got to see all that. So in any case, we were there at Subic Bay. They got a bunch of really cool bars. They had this one outdoor bar right by the beach, and we're hanging out and having some drinks with my buddies. And this old like German couple, mid-50s, early 60s maybe, we started talking to us. We're like, oh, it's 3 of us. And they're like, oh, you're American? And like look around and like it's a bunch of Filipinos, and like some white guys and a black guy.
Yeah.
And they're like, can't blend in very well. And of course they hear our accents as well. So they're like, oh, what do you do? Are you on the naval ship? And like instantly my radar's like, yes, and they start asking me, oh, really? What ship is it? How long is it? How fast does that thing go? And they start asking all the right questions. And even, a couple of Tiger beers in, I'm like, oh, these are totally spies. Like these spies are trying to hit us up. And, I think that I'm even like half drunk trying to like do counter surveillance on them. And I'm like, hey, Jimmy, yeah, these guys are so cool. Let's buy them a drink. Let's get a picture with them. And so like I stand behind them and I've got the man and the woman on each side of me. Or I'm like kind of in the middle, and I'm like looking in the camera going, these are spies. Yeah, like, they're spies. I was like, we're going to send this to NCIS in the morning. Yeah. And so they started asking like super detailed questions about all that. And after that, I realized I needed to have like some form of a cover story. Because if they get this, like if in my drunken stupor while I'm overseas or whatever, say something like, oh yeah, well I run, I'm in charge, or I run these,
do all the radar.
Yeah. Like I do
like,
these, these operation stuff is like, I'm going to get kidnapped. So I need something to, as a cover. So
I'm the cook.
Yeah, exactly. And so my bunkmate was a supply guy, and I started telling people, I've always liked the name Cody. My name Clay, it's kind of like you don't hear that very often. In some places you do, like typically like country, Western, like Southern, especially in the mid 80s, like when I was born. But I never really liked that name. And I always thought Cody was a cool name. And there was a guy that was mentoring me. He was actually a Blackwater pilot that was attached to our ship.
Sick.
And his last name was Willis. He was an old man, dirty old cowboy. And so like, he took a liking to me.
Is that where the pilot?
I was going to say, is that our pilot guy?
That's a different pilot guy.
Okay.
And so I was like, Cody Willis, like, oh, that's cool. I could make that work. And so like for years when we would go out, that was my alter ego. I was Cody Willis, and I worked in supply. I just moved big boxes around down to the bottom of the ship. I don't even get to see daylight for weeks at a time. So like if that ever happened again, they would be, okay, this guy knows nothing. So that was where that persona came from.
So did the German couple kidnap you? And
no, luckily I was not bound and gagged in the back of a, like a jingle truck or something like that, like hidden in the hills of the Philippines. Thank goodness.
When I had almost the same thing happen, I was in Qatar from 13 to 14, and we were just like walking around the market one day, and it was me and two other buddies, and white dudes were all like 6 foot high in tights, like all hella pale like me. And this, these two people come up to us and they're like, oh, are you Americans? And we're like, Canadian, and just like ran away. We're like, what do we do? Like, we're like, nope. Yeah, we're Canadians. We're clearly American in the military in your country. And we're just like, everyone panic, run away.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much defense there.
Yeah, no, we're like, we stick out so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other protagonists, so Renegade Actual, Val Grayson, he's the guy that after that, I still stayed overseas. They put me back out in Guam. I had been in and out of Guam for, 2 years. And then I changed jobs to Master at Arms, went back out to Guam for 2 more years. So I was gone a total of like 4 years. Came back to the States in 2012 and then went to Florida. And that's where I met Actual and had a whole bunch of training opportunities that were afforded to us. Just, he is a real people person and he's a networker, and I am not like that. I'm not, but he's never met and it's a funny story because he talks about his dad. Like, he's like, yeah, my dad could sell ice to an Eskimo. He never met a stranger. And, he's kind of the same way. So, and it works out very well. He's a big picture guy. I'm a detail guy. And, we took off immediately. He had a small tactical team that I got on, and then quickly rose up to his 2IC, which is why in the book
It's all coming together.
Yep.
It's all coming together.
Putting pieces together over here.
Which is why you see that Cody is Renegade 02 and not the guy in charge. It's because I'm reflecting these relationships that occur in real life. And my co-author, he's Frank Pierce, 03, Renegade 03, is based on him and our relationship. He's another guy that I met in Florida. And then Tom Laurie is one of my oldest friends that I grew up with, met in 6th grade. And, we went to a real small high school. He ended up joining the Army and deployed a couple of times or whatever. And we're still friends to this day. We just went and did a run and gun like 2 weeks ago. And so, we've been friends, I don't even know, like almost 30 years now, because we met right when I moved there. So I was like 10 or 11. So yeah, almost 30 years. He and I have been friends.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, he read the book, right after came out. I was like, thanks for not killing me off, man. I really appreciate it. I didn't look like a sissy either. And I was like, dude, you think I'm really going to do that to you? Like, we've been friends 30 years. You think I'm going to make you look like a wimp in front of everybody?
Chapter 2 already dead.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those characters are based on, people
Inspired.
That's correct. Yeah. Thank you. Inspired by people that I know. And my older sister, the character of Tessa, the archaeologist, is kind of based on her. As far as her personality, like my sister's a very spitfire.
Yeah.
She gets that from my mom. She's very independent and strong, which I think is cool. Like growing up with like all the 80s heroines, like Ripley from Aliens and Sarah Connor. Like, I'm down with that. So, but yeah.
So you brought something for show and tell today, I see.
I did. I don't leave home without it anymore.
Tell us about what you got there.
So this is my Hodge Mod 2. I've wanted one of these guns a long time, like right after I got to Texas, and kind of like most people, kind of going around online, like primary, secondary. Hodge starts to kind of, come into the picture. And about 2017, 2018, I'm not going to lie, I like nice things. I didn't have nice things growing up, and now I'm a real sucker for it. So when like the words like lightweight, materials and something better than the average deal and space age this, I get real interested. My ears perk up. And as exclusive as it was and how many small batches, I couldn't get one. And so right after the book released, made some, strategic connections, and was able to put one together. And this is when I did it, I was like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I'm not just going to throw any Hodge 12.5 together. I'm going to do it just like he's got it in the book. Because at the time I didn't have one.
Oh, okay.
And I was just writing about
what you wanted.
Yeah, if I had a Hodge, this is what it would look like. And now, like after the book was already done and released, I was able to put one together. So I was able to like really think about how I wanted it. So this is it. When you're reading, if you end up reading Renegade Immortality, this is the one that Cody's using. So Surefire Mini 2 suppressor, PEC 15 mod light, 18350, T2 on a Unity riser, and Aimpoint 3X magnifier. That's pretty much it. Some little tan accents.
Yeah, sprinkled throughout.
Almost black upper receiver, a little flash of gray. I kind of dig that.
Is that an Edgar Sherman sling?
That is a Sheriff of Baghdad sling.
Okay.
Their B sling. I've been through every sling on the market, and this is my favorite one. So, not many people know about John McPhee, the Sheriff of Baghdad.
Oh, Shrek.
Yeah, he's not as, I guess, popular is the word.
I don't know. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it seemed like he was pretty in it, but it seems I haven't really heard that name in a while.
Yeah, he's a no nonsense.
Yeah,
dude.
Very,
and it's like, hey, this is the information, and he's not going to make it flashy just for the light. Flashy.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And so But his stuff is very effective. I went to a class of his back in 2018, and the dude is top notch. I mean, he's killed more people in smallpox probably. You know, like he's got a lot of experience, and he'll tell you that. Like he's not shy about that. You know, good dude. So I really like that sling. They're inexpensive. They're pretty cool. So I dig that. Geisley SSA X. I don't know about y'all. I don't know if this SSA X is like really worth the money, but I sure enough like it. That's my favorite trigger that they make.
I don't know if I've ever.
A while back, I got on the super dynamic enhanced train, and that's what I found that. Tried a bunch of different Geisley ones, found that one, and I just kind of stuck with that through everything. New stuff's getting LaRue's though. Like if I'm doing a new one, it's got a LaRue.
That's what was in this when I first got it.
Just because it's like $100 and it's
I don't know. I really like the LaRue.
But I think I have more guns with STEs than without. So
I tried just the SSA E. Mm-hmm. I had like not a precision gun, but like a kind of a gamer-ish gun. I wanted something that I could just nice and accurate, and I could not for the life of me prep that first stage like well enough to not have. I'd be lining up my sights, prep it, bam.
Yeah.
And I had to go back to just like the regular SSA, whatever. Mm-hmm. Right. That second stage in the E models for me. I don't know. My big dumb fingers.
I got one of through a buddy, through Nick. It was the super dynamic like 3-gun.
Oh yeah.
Oh dude.
That thing was
I can't.
Scary.
Yeah.
Like,
that's no for me,
you're
dog.
like, oh
Yeah.
I meant to do that once.
Yeah.
So I had so when I was in Florida, Gun Gallery there in Jacksonville, it's a little like shop. It doesn't look like anything. It looks like they sell meth out of there. But inside it is awesome. They've got every little thing that you would ever need. Well, they had, at the time you could only get them in a gun, and I guess somebody didn't want it, but it was a super VTAC. So it was the super dynamic. No, I'm sorry. It was the super 3-gun, but with a pound or a half pound added up front. So it's single stage, but supposed to be like, it's duty rated. Yeah. I think they just changed the label. I don't think they changed anything in the spring. Yeah, I was behind like a lead sled and had everything, and hand on the one side of the pistol grip, and trying to like be real precise with one gun that I had. And dude, that thing let off a 5-round burst. Yeah, that just like, and it was like bump firing in the sled. I was like, holy, this it. Nope. Yeah, this trigger's gone. I'm taking it out.
So how is it, working through? So I guess you finished the book in a couple years, but then it took a couple years to release. How was the process with like the publishers and shopping it around and working through edits and all that? Like, can you give us a little bit behind the scenes look at that?
Yeah. I was really fortunate. So I'm a full-time firearms trainer at my agency. So I see a bunch of cadets, and some of the guys were like joking around. We do our introductions, and guys are always messing with each other in the office, and they're like, "Yeah, tell them about your book. Yeah, you're going to be a famous author." Like, and it's just like pages on a document at that point. Well, one of the cadets later, who's a good dude and a friend of mine now, pulls me aside and he's like, "Hey, I understand they were messing with you and all that, but my dad is in the publishing world and he's got connections, and so like, obviously nothing's ever for certain in that, but he can get you in front of people." And I was like, "Oh yeah, cool. Yeah. That's not really appropriate kind of, relationship between officer and cadet." Yeah. And I was like, "But I'll hit you up when you graduate." And I kind of forgot about it because, we see cadets come through and they could just be saying that to try and like win our favor or whatever. So we have to stay pretty neutral, but no kidding. That weekend, the day he graduated, he knew somebody that knew me and texted me the day he graduated and was like, "Hey, I got your number from so-and-so. My dad's in town for graduation. He said he's willing to meet with you this weekend. Do you want to meet with him?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I met with him and kind of talked to him about everything. And he's like, "Well, I've got some contacts. Let me reach out to see if anybody would hear you out." So he provided me some contacts with Brown Books up in Dallas. They're kind of a hybrid publisher, and I'll explain what that means. But I sent them the manuscript, and they got it, and they like the way that this process works. I thought it was just some person that reads it and tells you yes or no, and most often like a very high rejection rate, like 97%.
Oh,
no.
wow.
Like it's real high. But they do it, and they do what's called a read through. I think a read through or read back. I forget. It's been a couple years now, but excuse me. It is very detailed, and he goes through nearly scene by scene of what occurs in the book. It took like 45 minutes to get through this, scene by scene of what occurs, and some pros and cons, and then like has a whole list of, these people in the office, like they would have bought it. These people, it's not their thing. They would not have bought it. And like, I mean, it was a very structured thing that I was not expecting. And my intent was, okay, I'm just going to take this feedback, because this is really good feedback for me. I'm going to take it, work on the manuscript, make it better, and then, proceed with like version 2 or whatever, just make it a little bit better every time. And at the end of it all, he was like, well, what do you think? And his name is Tom. And I was like, well, Tom, I don't know, like what happens from here? And he's like, well, I've got an interest in publishing it. And I dropped the phone. And I was like, he could hear the shuffling.
Yeah.
I was like, picked the phone back up, and he's like, hello, you okay? And I was like, yeah, sorry, I thought you said you wanted to publish it. And he goes, yeah, I did. I was like, okay, hang on, I got to put you on mute. And I put him on mute. I was like, oh my goodness, and I was like so excited, couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And so I decided to, because my plan originally was to self-publish, but like every man who's ever wanted to do anything crazy, like, do I have what it takes to make it big, right? Do I have what it takes to be a cop? Do I have what it takes to be this or do that? And I just had to have that question answered. So I wanted someone to either tell me yes or no. Mm-hmm. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking it's going to be a no. Thanks for trying, play again.
Yeah.
But he said that, and I was just shocked. No one was more surprised than me. And so, because I decided to do the hybrid publishing, so what that means is I front most of the cost, but I also get more of the return.
Yeah.
So like a traditional publishing model, I essentially sell it to you, the publisher, and you take all the risk on whether it's going to sell, print the book, make the book, edit the book. You're paying editors. You're taking all that risk. You'll give me some money. Like, okay, here's like $5,000. And just know that you're not going to make any money back. We're not going to give you a single penny until we make our $5,000 back in sales. And then you'll get whatever we agree upon on royalties, whatever percentage. With hybrid publishing, it works. I share the risk and take most of it. Mm-hmm. And so I get more of a return depending on where you buy it from. And we kind of do it together. And more or less, you're paying them to publish your book. That is an attractive way to do it. And it's also insanely expensive.
I was going to say, it sounds very pricey.
So it's like some overtime was in the works.
Well, so this is where I think that people kind of look at me weird when I say this. I don't think, because I never wrote anything before this. I think that some of this was like inspired spiritually by the Lord. Because I also had some money that my grandmother had left me. It was like, you can't touch this, and whatever reasons. And I never had access to it. Like, really, it was for crazy stuff. But it was almost like within $1,500, the exact amount it would cost.
Nice.
And so I had some of that available, and I prayed about it a lot. Talked to my wife, and she's like, I don't know. It seems like it's kind of meant to be. Like, let's just roll the dice.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's take a leap of faith with it. I was like, okay, let's do it. So yeah, actually, once that occurred, there are at least 3 or 4 different editing phases. Some of which I was involved, one of which I was deeply involved in. At the end of them, I had to sign off on. Like, I've read this book 7 times.
Yeah.
Like, I know everything that happens. Not only did I write it, but like I've had to go through there. And so the first editing phase, developmental edits, dev edits, they chose to hire an outside editor for this specifically because of this type of genre and who they thought like they want a good match. Because if somebody's like, hey, I don't like guns at all, and I think you should take all this stuff out of here.
It's like, well, that's
right.
Yeah.
And so like they try to find a really good match for that. And they put me up with a freelance editor. Her name is Stacy Smefkovsky or something like that. Editsbystacy.com is who she does. So if you're ever writing anything and you need a good editor, oh man, she is top notch. She's really good. So she's like, I love this. She's like, I love this whole book. This thing is so awesome. This is so much fun. It's my favorite genre. And so I worked with her, and the developmental edit is like, hey, these story elements, like these big chunks of the story, just kind of need to be altered a little bit. Or this guy's relationship doesn't match up at this point with their relationship at that point in the book. And there just needs to be some more linkage to how they got from this point to the other. And so what ended up happening is at the end of it, I realized like the whole last third of the book needed to go, more or less. And it's all my choice, not their choice. These are like, hey, listen, we are experienced in this. You can do whatever you want. These are some of the suggestions. And it was like minor stuff. Like this that occurs here doesn't meet up with this that occurs there. So, I mean, you can remedy that, but I suggest you remedy that. And not in like a weird way, but just like, hey, you know what? I just probably won't do very well, but it's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to, but you know, it's not going to sell.
Exactly. So I came to the realization, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to like cut all of this, some of this stuff. Because what I was trying to do is I was trying to cram too much stuff into the one book when I could make room for it in later projects if I desired. So that worked out pretty nice.
Yeah, like sometimes you'll see books that are like 700 or 800 pages long, you know, and it's like, man, that's an undertaking to go through.
Oh, yeah. So
what are you, about 280, 300?
Yeah, I think so.
What's your guess?
I'm going to say 287.
We'll see about that. Do you know?
I don't.
I finished it in May.
I can tell you how many words.
Yeah.
I'll start counting. 317.
370. Oh, wow. Yeah. So I was within.
Yeah, you were close.
Within 30.
Yeah. That was really close. That's a good guess.
Not bad.
Well, you read a lot too, don't you, Ike?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I saw you at the Cornerstone class, and we were talking about books, and you're like, yeah, I've been trying to do this thing. I was like, you read how many? Like, good night. That's a lot.
I think I'm working on like number 40 or 39 for the year. I shoot for one a week, or like on average. Like, I'll be like reading multiple at a time, and there'll be weeks where I don't finish it.
3 for the year, so high five, Ian.
And one of them is Renegade Immortality.
Yeah, there you go. In front of me.
That's right.
So that's like 33% of the books you
do. We're good. Solid number.
Do you split it up between fiction and nonfiction, or is it just like whatever comes across?
It's probably about 90% nonfiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't read very much fiction at all.
Yeah.
I try and work some in there, just like mainly classics, like older stuff, but then this is, this one obviously is relatively new, a couple months old.
You want to hear a crazy story about this? So me, with my affinity for Hodge, because it's a good gun, I have never even met Jim. And every time I've been at the big, annual conference for Texas law enforcement, TTPOA, either I haven't been there when he's there or vice versa. And so he was there this past year and I wasn't there. And some of the guys, I think he was at y'all's booth.
Yeah.
And so some of the guys that and it had just come out. Like, it had been out like 2 or 3 weeks. And some of the guys in the office, they saw him and they're sending me pictures like, oh, look who we're hanging out with, and they're like got their arm around Jim. I was like, you son of a,
You're dead.
Exactly. Well, they come back with this story, and I talked to Jim about it later on the phone. They come back with this story, and they're like, dude, he's got a copy of your book. I was like, really? Like, he bought one? No. What? And they're like, yeah, we start telling him, hey, we've got this guy. He wrote this book. He's got your guns in it. And Jim was looking at him. He's like, what's the name of it? I was like, Renegade Immortality. Hold that thought. Pulls out his phone, starts flipping through it. And he's like in his like group chat with his family or whatever, family chat. Pulls up. He's like, this one? Shows them a picture, and they're like, yeah, that one. And Jim's like, you just solved like a several week long, like month long, like family, like mystery. He's like, dude, one of these just showed up on my doorstep. And apparently he shares something with Amazon, they got like a family Amazon thing. And so he was like asking the people and like, kids and all that, was like, hey, so-and-so, your book's here. I'm like, I didn't order a book. Asked another family, hey, your book's here. I got it at the house. I didn't order a book. So I started asking around the office. I'm like, all right, guys, when are y'all's messing with me? Because like guys on our SWAT team know him. And I start reaching out to like, people who would know him or get in touch with him. I was like, hey man, did you send him a book? No. Like, dude, that's super weird. Anyways, I start building my Hodge. Like a couple of weeks later, I needed a question answered from Jim. So I reached out to the same SWAT guy. I'm like, hey man, can you just like provide an introduction via text? Yeah, sure. I text him. It's like 10 in the morning for like on a Friday or something. I don't hear anything back. And I'm like, this guy's not, it's fine. He's busy. I get it. Like, he's got other stuff to do than talk to some person he doesn't even know. And at like 5 p.m., he calls me and he's like talking to me like we're old friends. And I feel like I'm like a kid, like sitting on Santa's lap, talking to Jim Hodge on the phone. And he's like, he tells me this whole story and he swears up and down. He's like, listen, I forget stuff all the time. I remember, I checked the history. I went through my order history.
Oh yeah.
I went through my family members' order history. I did not buy that book. One showed up on my doorstep.
Oh, dang.
And I was like, Jesus sent it to you, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Like, Jesus wanted you to read Renegade Immortality. And so we just had like, it was a really cool moment for me. Just really odd. Maybe one of y'all gave it to him or something. I don't know.
It wasn't me.
It was not me.
But yeah, I thought it was cool. I'm convinced Jesus sent it to him. So yeah, we were talking about guns and gear and this. And so another reason why I really like Jim and the way he does stuff is he can pull up shot. He's talked about this in other podcasts. So I think y'all's podcast, the way that he does the things that he does is for independence sake. Like, he doesn't owe anybody anything. And I thought that was really cool because that's the same way I did the book. I don't, to do the hybrid publishing model like that, some people will go into debt, take out loans, and, they owe people money. I could not, do anything with it. And I don't owe anybody a dime. I was like, that's pretty cool. I like that independence piece. Like, he owns all the dies and all that stuff. And that's pretty slick. So yeah, we were talking about all that and I don't know, I thought it was really neat. But yeah.
So it's always funny when Jim calls Justin for stuff.
Yeah.
he's like, oh, Jim's calling and just has to like, run away and do stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife was totally making fun of me too. Like, I was like, babe, it's Jim Hodge. He's calling me.
I gotta go.
Yeah. She's like, who? Like, yeah, just watch the kids. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I still haven't met him, so I'll meet him one of these days. But I told him, I was like, yeah, whenever you're around my area or I'm around yours, I'll shoot you a text or whatever, and I'll sign your copy and take you out to lunch. And according to him, apparently, this is the first book that's ever been featured, to his knowledge, with any of his guns.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Neat.
Which is pretty. He's like, I've been in characters based on him, have been in books, apparently. So he says, which is pretty cool. But
Yeah.
he's like, no, nobody's ever had my guns. So yay for
Score.
me.
Yeah.
Yay for me.
Nice.
That's pretty neat.
Nice.
So what's next on the author side? Do you have are you working on any other books currently or?
Yeah, I am. For those that have read it, or if you do read it, you'll see that it kind of ends in a certain way, kind of like that. So I'm working on some other things. I would like to make a series. I'm trying to have, being a cop and in the military for, 20 years, I do not, and I'm almost 40. So I don't have a big social media presence, but I'm trying to grow that for the authorship. So I'm trying to be more present in, it takes me forever to make a freaking reel because I don't know how to navigate. Like I was telling my wife the other day, I made one of me shooting guns. It's kind of like the author shtick there for me is not only do I write about it, I actually do some of it, But I was like, babe, did you know that you could do this little make a little clip here and then do this part slow-mo? That's so cool. It's like, yeah,
she's
everyone does that.
You're so old.
Yeah, she's like, your daughter could probably do that for you. I was like, oh, put her on the payroll then.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I've Googled how to use Instagram before.
Oh yeah, 100%.
How to it changed. Yeah.
I don't even get on Instagram anymore. I had to figure out how to make a reel. I was like, where's the button for it? I know Facebook. I'm old. Okay.
Yeah. And everyone keeps telling me, oh, you need to go to TikTok. I refuse. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
I deleted it. Couldn't.
Yeah. Especially with everything that's on there today, the state of the nation, state of the world, really, in my opinion.
Fact.
So speaking of Instagram, what is your Instagram handle and where can people find you?
Yep. At Christopher_Clay_author. Yeah. I'm also on Facebook for old people. Christopher Clay.
LinkedIn.
I don't have LinkedIn. I am on, is it Twitter or X now? What is it called?
I think it's X. I haven't had it.
It is X.
I deleted Twitter 2016.
Yeah. I'm on it. Well, excuse me. I have an account. I'm not on it.
Yeah.
A bunch of bots.
I think we have an
follow me,
account.
I believe we do. I made one, and it's a place. It's a place.
I think Aaron Cowan made a good analogy or an explanation of what Twitter is. He said it's like a lot of people in a room all talking, and then the ones with the most followers have a louder voice, and it's just a bunch of chatter, just everybody talking, all trying to talk over each other all at the same time.
It's a journey.
Yeah, I couldn't. The format just did not make sense to me. I'm like, I don't get this. I'm
likewise. For me, it's not user friendly, and so I don't mess with it. I'm most active on Instagram and then Facebook, but I have a website. It's kind of Spartan right now. There's not a whole lot on it. Actually, that reminds me, I need to hit up the lady that does it for the publishers to change some stuff. But that's ChristopherClayAuthor.com. So if you need to email me, it's clay@ChristopherClayAuthor.com for anything. So if anybody wants to reach out, talk about NEF or, whatever. So.
Yeah, we'll have some links there in the description for this video and on the podcast and stuff
Where can people get your book?
They can get it, buy it direct from the publisher on my website, from there, or really anywhere books are sold online. So there's some options to have them in store, but I don't think I don't know. We'll see how that goes in the future, but it's still so early. Amazon, Books A Million, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com. Pretty much anywhere you can get it. If you just Google Renegade Immortality, Christopher Clay, Amazon will probably pop up first. Some of the others by that,
Yeah, I buy almost all my books on Amazon. That's where I got mine.
That's where everyone does their shop. That's generally where I point them the most.
Yeah.
That's where I've seen most of the traffic.
Okay.
And so leave a review. That really helps. With the authorship and kind of statistics and algorithms and all of that. People are all into that, but word of mouth is kind of how it's been spread so far. So haven't had anyone say yet. And I ask everyone, please, to just be completely honest in your review. I'm not asking for, slaps on the butt or whatever, but be honest with it. But I haven't had anyone yet say oh yeah, it totally sucked. You didn't know what you're talking about. There's a safety on this Glock or
Yeah.
Idiot.
Yeah, none of that is, there are some errors that always make it through in pretty much any book.
Yeah.
And there was one, I was kind of flipping through it the other day and about something, and it irritates me. It's like with the T2, like a 2 MOA dot. Well, the publishers and the editors don't know that. So it's like, yeah, the 2 MOA dots.
Oh, two thing in plural. Yeah.
Correct. And so
I didn't even catch that.
there was ones, sometimes that just like little things like that pop out to me. I'm like, oh man, I missed it. Like
Ruined.
Yeah.
and so there's little stuff in there every now and again, but
Correct that in the second edition.
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Otherwise, we're not reading it.
Yeah. I would expect nothing less. So, but yeah, I'm working on the second one right now. And this one is kind of the intro to the world, of course, and
Learning a lot, I bet, like I imagine it's pretty overwhelming.
this next one's going to be pretty, I'm not stretching it, but I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to be a little bit more risky with the stuff that I'm writing about. So
is the process shorter for the second one now that you already have like a relationship with a publisher?
I think it will be smoother.
Yeah.
Because I know what to expect. And there were several times I was waiting for them to like, hey, come on, are y'all done yet? Like, all right, listen, Junior, it just takes a little time.
Yeah.
We'll reach out to you. And so I know when to be impatient and I'm a very impatient person by nature. So like, I know where to be. I know I need to be more patient in this phase.
Yeah.
Because that's important for these things. So we'll see. Yeah. I'm actually working on, I've got a plan. I'm going to throw Big Tex in the next one.
Oh, hell yeah.
If you're cool with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I've got it all planned out, actually.
Totally nerd out over that.
I needed this thing to happen. And then I talked to you in my cousin's course, Eric's course. And,
oh, he's your cousin?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh,
so
I had no idea.
Well, so yes.
Cousin from another brother.
Speaking of, so just saying, we're going to do a shameless plug here. Cornerstone Performance, Eric, it's the guy that runs that, teammate of yours.
Yep.
Solid class. I took it, was it April? May?
It's a couple months ago.
Go in there.
It was sometime this year.
Yeah.
It was already warm, I'd say.
Yeah, it was but great class. Definitely recommend.
Yeah, you want to learn to shoot real good and stuff. Mm-hmm. Definitely go see him. He's on Instagram, cornerstone.eric or eric.cornerstone.
One of those two.
Yeah, just go to my page and I tag him in all sorts of stuff. You want to learn to shoot real good? That's the guy you need to go see. Yeah, so we work together there in the office. We're not related by blood. But we look so much alike and our hair is kind of like similar. People would often talk to him, go do something out on the range or whatever, come back, he would be gone or in the bathroom. See me and pick up the conversation.
Josh and Justin.
And like, I'm like, I don't know who you are. I just talked to you 30 minutes ago. I was like, dude. And so he's a very witty and sharp guy. So he picked up on it immediately. He was like, oh, that's my cousin. And so we just got this thing going now
great.
where
Nice.
like, yeah, he's my cousin. And so we've got this whole thing planned out. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, anyways, yeah, we met there and whatnot. So it's pretty cool.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely,
This is
thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. It was cool to sit down and kind of get the behind the scenes look at all this. And
yeah, same. I've been a customer of Big Tex for years. I bought this suppressor.
Oh, nice.
From y'all. Thanks to Black Lives Matter with all that overtime in 2020. Yeah. Like 36 hours of overtime in 3 days. Yeah. And oof. Yeah. I should have bought two, but yeah. So in any case, yeah, I've been buying stuff from y'all. I'm probably going to buy stuff later today, but it's really cool to see the behind the scenes of what goes on here. So that's really special. Thanks.
Well, go pick up a copy of the book. We'll have links there in the description. I enjoyed it. I read it here a couple months ago, and I think you said you're working your way through it.
No, I finished it.
I would definitely. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I would definitely recommend it. So, Ian, if you can part us with some words of wisdom.
Like, subscribe, leave a comment, drop a link, follow Mr. Clay, follow us, change your socks, and call your grandma.
Take a knee, drink water.
Take a knee, drink water. Be good. Thanks, guys.
Believe in the Lord.
Yes.